Good morning, and thank you all very much. It has indeed been a privilege listening to the talks today, and the talks yesterday have been wonderful as well. I'm very, very honored to be here amongst all of you. When I came back from the Asian Development Bank as head of technology last year, it was to work on development at the grassroots. One of the organizations that I work for is Arogyaworld, and we focus on the prevention of non-communicable diseases. We've been hearing, yesterday also it was mentioned, the cost of diseases like diabetes is extremely high. In India, we have close to 65 million people who are living with diabetes, and this number is expected to grow in the next decade or so by another 20 million. So that's a ridiculously high cost. I came across a statistic the other day that says that 112 million people are expected to fall into poverty because of this disease in the next few years. That is scary, to say the least. It is extremely frightening. And let's remember that it's not just the diabetics, but their entire families that are going to get pushed down into poverty if we do not do something about this now. And that's the reason I chose to work with Arogyaworld. Yesterday, as I was walking in, I saw this video where Dr. Reddy is calling for a war on chronic disease. And I think that's exactly where we are at. So the story that I'm going to tell you about is an attempt we made in 2012-13 to reach out to people who are prone to diabetes or who live with diabetes, 1 million of them. So we wanted to do an intervention at a population level. We know, and Sangeeta mentioned this yesterday, that when you have when you empower people with information, when you work deeply with them, they are able to make the change and able to control their sugar levels in as little as 100 days. So we know that the causes of diabetes, we know how to bring it under control. Our attempt was to take it out to a population level. So we worked with Nokia. Nokia had this Nokia Life platform that they had introduced. And as part of that bouquet of services, there was also Arogyaworld's little module called Mdiabetes. People could opt in and say, I would like access to these messages. They were essentially 6 months of simple text messages. So none of this exotic technology there, it's just simple text messages. For the first 6 days, they got messages every day. And after that, the messages were spaced out twice a week for the rest of the period. And the messages were about how do you prevent diabetes. They were about what is the impact of diabetes and so on. So that's what we had done. The results were actually quite tremendous. So we found that what we did was we also had a control group. So these were people with non-Nokia phones, and we looked at that group. About 1,000 people was what we selected, both in the experimental and in the control group. So we worked with them and basically talked to them at the start of the program, and we spoke to them after the end of the program. And we looked at the various behaviors. I've just highlighted a few here. So there's fruits and vegetables, and there is a decrease in consumption of fats, and there is physical activity. The physical activity, we did not see too much of difference. So we are convinced that it's not just text messages. There's something more that needs to be done. But as far as the others were concerned, we saw 15% behavioral change. Now, that is tremendous if you think about the fact that all they have got are those text messages over that period of time. What did we learn from this experience? One, that text messages can be pretty effective in something like this. We also realized that there are illiterate people, and therefore going forward, we would look at something like voice messages as well, in addition to text messages that people could opt into. It is obviously easily scalable to a very large population, and it is not just India that is facing a crisis in NCDs. Many other countries are. The same set of principles are going to be applicable everywhere else. The fact that people opted in and chose to be informed about diabetes, I think is very, very important. Rather than, if we were to blanket out a set of messages, I'm pretty sure we would not see these results. We use very simple technology, so there was really, really nothing that people needed to do. These are people who would otherwise not have been reached at all. So let's take the case of one of the people there, a person called Vetrivale, 58 years old. He said he had been a diabetic, but did not know enough about what diabetes could do, what the causes were, how he could control his diet. Someone had told him, you need to control your diet, but he didn't know what and how. And through these text messages, he was able to take a lot of action. He also said that he now goes to see a doctor regularly and therefore is able to manage his disease a lot better. The content is extremely, extremely important. We spent a lot of time and energy on getting the content right. We worked with Emory University to do the first crafting of the messages, but thereafter, we looked at whether it was culturally the right thing to do, whether it was something that people would relate to. And so we actually had Ipsos do a one-to-one conversation with face-to-face and over telephone with people across the country and look at whether they would act on the basis of what we had done. We fine-tuned the messages on the basis of that research. The frequency is, of course, important, and this is based on other studies that have been held as well. We also believe that it is very important that the messages have the stamp of a credible organization. In our case, it was part of the Nokia Life bouquet, and therefore it carried a certain credibility with it. What are we doing now? We are looking at an app. We work with people at the workplace. We have a healthy workplace program, and we think that the smartphone is a good way to go forward. So we do have an app. But nevertheless, I don't think it takes away any of the power of the simple, good old text message. We also think that we can target people better if we looked at things like analytics, if we work with the right partners. We're very convinced that it will be possible to target the right populations. What we had done was a very random kind of intervention, and even that has had a huge outcome. We think that it is possible to integrate with wearables and so on. So, it is possible to get a sense of what is happening real time, and that would also help people manage what they are doing a lot better, for example, physical activity. So there are other things that we can do using technology, but still it comes back to the fact that the simple, good old text message works, and works extremely well. I have a dream that in 15 years' time, come 2030, we will have no chronic disease. And why do I say this? I'm a Rotarian. I've seen how, with concerted effort, with a partnership that had many, many different organizations involved, we were able to eradicate polio from the face of this earth. There is no reason why we cannot do the same for chronic disease. We need partners. We need partners. This cannot be done by an Arogyaworld alone. All we've done is touch 1 million people. We are sure that this can be multiplied and multiplied many times over, but we need the partnerships. We need the collaborations, and we need credibility around what we're doing. We know we've got the content right. We know we've got the mechanics right. But now we need to look at how this can be scaled to many millions more. So I'm sure that in 30 years' time, India will be known for its people, for its cuisine, for its arts and culture, for its innovation, for its wonderful healthcare system, not for being the diabetes capital of the world. Thank you very much.